Hey guys, Legomnews, and welcome to my final showcase of the year to celebrate one of the best movies of 2024, that being Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which, as most of you know, was my most anticipated movie of the year. And after watching it yesterday with a good friend of mine, I can for sure say that it was amazing and totally worth the wait, and it's probably one of the best video game movies ever made. And here I have the blue blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog, played by Ben Schwartz, and the ultimate life form himself, Shadow, played by Keanu Reeves. Now, I know the showcase is late because of both exams and going out for the holidays with my family, but while I was out of town, I did work on Shadow on and off, and I'm super proud on how he turned out, and Sonic is definitely a massive improvement from my last Sonic figure back in 2022. But we'll get to all that later on in the video, but yeah guys, with all that said, let's get started.
Life's all about the choices we make. Remember to listen to your heart. You're gonna make the right choice when it matters the most.
One hedgehog to another. Who does your highlight?
So starting off with the blue blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog, played by Ben Schwartz, and he was amazing in the movie and probably had one of the best arcs in the whole film, and the fight scenes between him and Shadow were just incredible. And one of my main priorities with this figure was to make it 10 times better than whatever I did with my Sonic figure back in 2022, which, I mean, it was decent at the time, and at the same time, it was better than whatever crap I did with my first Sonic figure back in 2020, which is like an image of him like right there. I don't have the figure in hand. But yeah, you can just see on how these Sonic figures got better and better throughout over time. So I'm just super proud of how this figure turned out. But I would say this figure is a major upgrade, not just with the head sculpt, but also with the blue and the highlights this time around. And both of the main colors I used were my own custom colors, with the highlights being a lot lighter than the primary color. And once the head was sculpted, I applied the base layers on and engraved all the texture. And then once that was done, I lightly went over all the lighter tones with a brush, just very lightly. And then once that was done, I painted the eyes, which ended up looking better this time around. And I also painted a better mouth. Even the ears have a bit of like a flesh tone in them, just to create the darker tones between the mouth area and the ears. So you can see that there. I even painted like the little eyebrows that Sonic has right above the eyes. And also you can see that the eyes are a lot better this time around with the darker green base, and then with the secondary layer, that being the lighter green, and then, you know, the black areas and the pupils as well. But yeah, no, you can also notice that the snout is a lot more pointed this time around, which is actually something I wanted to do this time. And I'm just super proud of how this head turned out, and it ended up looking so freaking clean. So the rest of the figure is pretty self-explanatory, but before I did paint the torso, I did have to sculpt the back spikes first, which were actually not that complicated to do. So once they were sculpted, I did apply a buttload of glue for them to be fully secure. And then once that was done, I used the exact same technique with the brush to apply the highlights around that. And then once that was done, I did paint the front of the torso with the chest area, which is a lot more of an accurate shape this time around with my own custom color. And I also did use a bit of lighter brown to create some texture on there, so you can see that there. Same thing with the highlights. And the arms were pretty straightforward, 3D cuffs. And I did recently paint this light gray liner here. Sonic has a ring and an exact same technique with the highlights, but with the arms. So yeah, but one thing I was actually looking forward to doing with this figure were the legs. So the legs were pretty straightforward, like same thing with the highlights around the thighs here, so you can see out there, 3D socks painted in white. But the one thing I wanted to get right with this figure were the shoes, and the shoes were heavily inspired by Casmus Lego Sonic shoes, which are like around, which there's like a photo there. And I used that as my main reference point for the shoes for Sonic, and bro, they ended up looking so dang clean. So what I did was, I first of all painted the shoes in gray. I painted the base layer. The base layer was gray, and then what I did was I used a lighter gray just to paint the white details. And then once that was done, I painted the red first, and then I went over the lighter gray with the white. And bro, it ended up looking so clean, but at the same time, it was so complicated because red paint and white paint don't go that well together. And especially trying to paint like the white lines on top of the shoes there, like that was not easy, man. And also trying to make sure I don't get any red on the socks was also not easy. Trying to maintain all that precision was just so challenging. At the same time, I did get a better white paint, but white paint is still a paint to use. So yeah, and once all that was done, I painted the shoes on all four sides of the minifigure's legs, and you can see that even the socks wrap around even inside the legs. So there's that. So again, for you guys to get a good look at that. But yeah, guys, I think that's gonna have to be it for Sonic. And now let's finally move on to the ultimate life form.
When we're done, there won't be anything left.
Hey, no cheat code!
What did you do? What I had to.
Now moving on to the ultimate life from himself, shout out the Hedgehog played by Keanu Reeves, and he was easily the best part of the entire movie, and the way they nailed his character and his origin with Maria was just amazing and actually almost made me cry. And just a reminder, I wasn't one of those guys that cheered during Maria's death scene, but the way they did those scenes with both Shadow and Maria were just incredible, so I can see why people want to cheer that. But yeah, I actually been wanting to make shots in Sonic movie 2, and I am just so proud on how he turned out, and now let's finally talk about him. So one thing I did mention with Sonic was that when it came time to make both the heads for both Sonic and Shadow, I immediately knew they were going to be incredibly challenging for me to sculpt, and for some reason, Shadow actually took me the longest to sculpt. Like, it actually took me a whole weekend to do, while Sonic only took me a day, and that's because Shadow actually has a bit of a bigger head than Sonic's, because like these spikes here are angled a lot differently. You know, I really do want to engrave the eye. It's a bit more of a serious expression. And once all that was done, I of course went straight into paint work. And also like painting like these red designs on here, you know, I actually had to engrave like the gap between these two spikes on each side, just so I had no space to paint the red designs on there. And that was very tedious. And once all that was done, I did use a very dark gray to paint the highlights that you see on there. I actually have to water down to paint a lot. You know, same technique I used for the highlights for Sonic. And then like the tan area here, that's actually my own custom mix color. It's more of just a darker version of the tan I used for Sonic. And then once that was done, I did paint the nose, paint the eyes, you know, paint the red designs here around the eyes. And I also did paint the detail inside the ears. And the mouth actually took me the longest to paint because I couldn't figure out like which expression for Shadow I wanted to do. But then once all that was done, it ended up looking pretty freaking clean, man. And I think that's gonna have to be for the head. So very similar to Sonic, you know, I did the exact same process I did for the torso. You know, it was reversible, sculpted the back spikes and the tail. Then once that was done, I painted them in black, and then I went over them with gray highlights. And then once that was done, I did paint the chest for which was a lot more complicated, you know, since all like these like sharper sides here. And trying like to go over the gray with the white was very tedious, you know. And then like once that was done, I did paint a bit of like a light gray texture on the chest fur there. And once all that was done, I did paint the light gray highlights around the torso so you can see all of that there, man. But yeah, man, I think it's gonna be for the torso. Now, I do want to take some time to talk about the arms because they are a very different situation than Sonic's, and that's because Shadow has like these red areas on the cuffs here along with the inhibitor rings. So what I wanted to do for the inhibitor rings was that I basically got these very tiny rings that are actually used for jewelry or whatever. Then I got a couple of those for my mom, and they fit perfectly onto the minifigure's wrist. And for the cuffs, those are actually 3D elements that actually did kind of like cut in a very specific shape. So you can kind of see that there where like the red's actually a lot more raised than the black. So once all that was done, I painted the entire thing, you know, painted the gray highlights, painted all the detail that you see there. And then once that was done, I actually did paint these red designs on the ends of the arms here, so you can see that there. They're kind of like similar to like the designs that you see on Shadow's head. So yeah, and also I actually did want to paint the rings in my own custom gold color, but that didn't happen because the rings actually made contact with the torso and the paint would have just worn off. So yeah, that didn't happen. But yeah, man, with all that paint work, it actually ended up looking pretty clean. Now let's move on to my favorite part, the legs. So very similar to Sonic, you know, the legs were a pretty similar process, you know, same thing with the highlights, you know. I actually did paint like these red stripes on the sides recently, so you can see that there. And the 3D elements were very similar to the cuffs, you know, the same thing with the red, you know, being a little bit higher than the black. And then once that was done, I applied these thinner straps to represent the inhibitor rings, which actually don't wrap around on all four sides of the minifigure's legs, so you can see that there. If I were to like apply them inside the minifigure's legs, the paint would just like worn off, so I didn't want that. And once that was done, I ended up doing my favorite part of this entire figure, that being the shoes. And that was actually something I wanted to get right with this figure, you know, like, because these are actually the best interpretation of Shadow's shoes from any Sonic media. So I really wanted to get that right, so you can see all that detail there. And also trying like to make sure like the gold doesn't clash with the white was also very tedious, you know, especially like paint on the top there. Like, that was just not fun, man, but I managed to make it look as clean as I possibly can, and I'm super proud of it. And I was like trying to pack in as much detail as I possibly can on the white areas here was also very tedious, and for some reason I actually managed to pack in enough detail on the black areas. But yeah, and of course the detail wrapped around on all four sides of the minifigure's legs, and that just looks super clean, man. And before we wrap up this video, I do want to show you guys one more thing before we end this video off. That's right, I gave Shadow his freaking gun, and it's just a simple Alien Conquest pistol. I did want to make the actual gun from the movie, but I just didn't have like the right piece to do it. And at the same time, I just didn't have enough time. So yeah, but that's just a simple Alien Conquest pistol. And here's a clip of me losing my mind over when Shadow got his gun in the trailer.
All the choices we make. Remember to listen to your heart. You're gonna make the right choice when it matters the most.
Yeah, I just sure like a literal moron, and so did everyone else. But yeah, guys, with all that said, let's finally wrap up this video. So guys, that's going to be it for the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 showcase, and that's going to be it for 2024. As you can clearly see, I got my very crappy Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik figures from 2022 as stand-ins, and I do hope to make new versions of these guys next year with some new pieces that LEGO has made throughout, like in 2023 and this year. But we will see. And I also like to make a new version of Robotnik because Robotnik's arc in the film was just amazing, and he had like an incredible transition from the first film to the third film, and that game actor suit was just, oh my gosh. So I really do hope to make him. I don't know if I'll make Gerald though, but I would like to make a half custom of Maria. But we shall see. And just thank you all so much for the support you guys have given me throughout the entire year. No, it really does mean a lot to me. And it really is one of the reasons why I keep going in YouTube. So yeah, guys. And I also do want to give a shout out to some of the people that support me throughout the year. You know, people such as Cyber RBC, Ty's Lego Productions, SCM Customs, Adam Brick Street Boy, Broken Brick Films, Interstellar Knowledge, Yeet FNAF Boy, Brickintosh, and just so much more. And once again, thank you all for the support you guys have given me throughout the year. And I can't wait to see what so many of you have in store for 2025. And yeah, guys, if you're new to the channel and if you like the content that I make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for you not to miss any new content coming in the future. And with all that said, guys, hope you all enjoyed. This is Legomnews signing out, and have a wonderful new year, and see you all next year.